Well, hello there. My name is Dave Bila. I want to welcome you to this new edition of News and Views, broadcast by Access LaPorte County on Public Access TV Channel 99. We are a weekly public opinion program addressing local, state, and national topics and issues of interest to the Michigan City and surrounding areas. Opinions are the views and the responsibilities of making comments and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of this program or its co-producers, the Three Stooges. We will adhere to broadcast rules, but absolutely no one's First Amendment rights of freedom of speech or freedom of the press will be either muzzled nor denied. Any unauthorized use of the accounts, descriptions, and events of this program without the express written consent of us strictly prohibited. We hope you enjoy the program, the discussion, and the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, a public service announcement for our viewing audience. Last week's show that was taped on 4/4, that was April the 4th, failed to appear on the screen last week. A technical snafu materialized, so you missed. What you saw was not the newest edition of News and Views. You saw a week prior, so obviously you probably got tired watching us, but that snafu has been straightened. It's been rectified. Today's show on 4/11 will appear on its normal time. Saturday morning at 10, Monday at 7:30, and then Thursday at 7:30. And there will be an alternate rebroadcast of 4/4. That was last week's show on Sunday at 11 a.m., Tuesday at 12:30 a.m., Wednesday at 12:30 a.m., and Friday at 10:30 p.m. So basically, you're going to hit next week's programming. You'll get a double banger of us. You'll see the 4/4 show, and then you'll see the 4/11 show. So if you like watching us, or if you get sick of us, I've forewarned you. Another interesting topic that's coming up on the 6th of May, the Michigan City Sanitary District, their engineer is making a presentation to the City Council pertaining to the Lafayette Street Storm Sewer Project.
Lafayette Barker.
And he'll make a presentation. I have some concerns about it, but talking with Tony, some of the concerns have been rectified. Now, Tony knows more than me, so something's in the works with the sewer to nowhere. It may eventually find a place to go. I want to thank everybody for listening to me, and on with the show.
It's all yours.
Mine? Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to start out with the ups and downs that we're now going through as a result of tariff proposals by the Trump administration. They've had several of them, and this is probably going to be going back and forth for quite some time. We're going to talk about the fact that you don't really want to follow the ups and downs in the stock market. What you want to do is look at it from the standpoint of where will this country, the state of Indiana, LaPorte County, and Michigan City benefit from these situations. We're going to talk about what are the items that Trump truly wants to bring back into the United States, and how will we go about doing that and try to get some idea of what this will cost. Right now, we are in a trading situation with just about all of the rest of the world with one exception. And that exception is China, in which we truly are in a trade war. Now, there's a lot of people out there being very upset about this, but my thought is this is certainly better than a shooting war. So as a result of that, how do we look at this situation and try to see it from the standpoint of what will benefit us? And I'm going to start out with what are the things that Trump wants to bring back into the United States, and how will this affect us? Well, he started out by saying we want steel, the steel is basically already here or it's been committed. When I say committed, there are a number of individuals, entities that have said they're going to look into building steel mills. I'm not sure that we really need one more other than this one, and that's Hyundai, which is committed to spending $5.1 billion to build another steel mill in Louisiana. Obviously, they want to make steel for not only the cars that they sell here, but also the cars that are also being imported into the United States, which now they think they can sell steel along with our steel makers, U.S., Cleveland Cliffs, and other steel makers here in the United States that will benefit us. Now, other things that he wants to bring back: computer chips, artificial intelligence and quantum software, lumber, military goods, pharmaceuticals, and shipbuilding. Pharmaceuticals and military equipment have to come back. We have to get that back into the United States. Computer chips, AI, and quantum software also highly important that we develop these and understand how it works in the United States. I'm going to start out by saying I want to take a look at two things: aluminum and shipbuilding. Aluminum is something that is going to increase in usage for over the next period of 10, 20, 30 years. Why? Because it's a low-weight replacement in certain areas for steel in the automotive industry and in the aeronautic industry. And so as a result of that, if you've got aluminum, you can cut those aluminum pieces, and you have to develop people who can use jigs software to do this. And on a machine, and this is going to take trained people, you're going to have some very high-paying jobs come back into the United States. So I would like to see us think about setting up a aluminum smelter in LaPorte County in the Kingsbury Industrial Park. Kingsbury Industrial Park was developed for very heavy industry. The smelter is one of those, but the environmental requirements for smelter industries today would make that, I think, very feasible. Now, why am I looking at that? Well, did a little research. In 2020, there were 24 aluminum smelters in the United States. Right now, there are 4. So as a result of that, this looks like an area that we need to work on. The next thing that I took a look at was shipbuilding. Well, we're not going to be Norfolk Shipbuilding and Dry Dock. We're not going to be Boston Shipyard. But what can we do? And with the technology that we have available here, and with our location, to me, one of the things that I looked at was tugs and icebreakers. Why tugs and icebreakers? Well, for one thing, they require steel, and we're very close to the steel mills, obviously. In addition to that, what is the single biggest component that goes into a tug or a icebreaker? It's the engine. Who is the biggest and best builder of engines in the world? Cummins Engine out of Columbus, Indiana. I got a feeling that not only would Trump's administration be very interested in this, I got a feeling the state of Indiana would be very interested in this, because you're going to use steel from Indiana. You're going to get the engine made by Cummins Engine in Columbus, Indiana, very close in terms of the shipping costs to get them in here and put this together. We need to start looking at that. And there is a huge demand for tugs. Now, because we are on the Great Lakes, we don't see this very often. But where do they really use a lot of tugs? Barge traffic. Mississippi River, Ohio River, Missouri River. And those tugs have to be replaced. And I could only find 2 manufacturers of tugs, and they were very limited in the United States. And I couldn't find any manufacturers of icebreakers. Not a whole lot of difference between a tug and an icebreaker. But for purposes of controlling very significant parts of the Earth's surface, that's water, in the Atlantic, up in the northern part, icebreakers become extremely important. Right now, we're competing with China and Russia over Greenland. Actually, it's the water around Greenland, and to do that, you need icebreakers. We also need icebreakers off of the coast of Alaska, because the Russians are sending in their military ships as much as they can to try to control that area, and we need to compete with them or we're going to be in big trouble. With that, I'll let my cohorts, who had, I guess, got involved in a technology snafu so that we could not broadcast the last ones, but I won't ask them to explain how that happened. Go, guys, take your points.
Before we get too far involved in this, an individual who was responsible to pick up last week's show in front of Alco TV here and put it on YouTube failed to pick up the thumb drive.
I think he picked it up yesterday, right? Is it there? Okay. I was delayed.
He was delayed. Well,
Let's talk about the subject.
Wait, before I get to, for some reason, what I looked out there, 4.4 was setting out there.
Okay.
It wasn't picked up. So it didn't, our show wasn't, the YouTube posting of our show wasn't
Technical snafu.
The technical snafu revolved around.
Okay, I want to go to the tugs because Bob brings up a great point that I don't think most people know. Maybe you guys don't even know. So the Michigan City Harbor gets money and grants or money from the feds and from the state, but the harbors all around the United States, whether it's Michigan City or any harbor on any coast or any ocean or Lake Michigan or any other Great Lake, can get a lot of money if they have commercial use. Michigan City has I think only one commercial use right now is the tourist boat that goes out. So if we were to start doing some commercial use of our harbor in manufacturing tugs, it would open up a funding opportunity that is enormous for the Michigan City Harbor.
Yeah.
Because we lose out on a lot of those monies. The only person that really gets a lot of money is now Burns Harbor because they have a far greater commercial use.
That's the Port of Indiana.
The Port of Indiana. Their commercial use is through the charts. Any other harbor on Lake Michigan or any other Great Lakes is really losing out on any commercial federal funds because they don't do commercial activities. So yes, this would help us out in many, many, many ways that we don't even understand, because the major thing that people are looking for right now is water. And when Ron Mayer ran for mayor and he was mayor, he used to push it, and to his right, he did. We are sitting on water, and people are literally dying for water. And our commercial use or our recreational use for water, we are sitting right here with untapped potential in water.
And just to show you how misunderstood we really are in some of the financial areas, I was on 2 different stations. Then I picked up a major blow in what was said about Lake Michigan's water out here. I'll read it to you. One of the announcers, I'm not going to give names or station numbers, but one of the announcers said that 20% of the world's fresh water is in Lake Michigan. That's not correct. What is correct is 20% of the world's surface water, fresh water, is in Lake Michigan. A lot of difference between the world's total fresh water supply, or 20% of it, and surface water
and when you say surface, that means easily accessible.
Yes.
It's on the surface.
Yeah.
And the other thing you brought up was pharmaceuticals. So a lot of people don't understand. It doesn't take much of a drive to go down to Purdue Westville and look to the right instead of to Purdue Westville over there on 421. And that is TP Labs Orthodontics. That is the person who invented braces. They would manufacture braces. And that is a highly profitable, highly paid industry that we are sitting on, and other industries like that we need to focus on.
But I want to go just into one other little aspect of this, which we talked about once or twice before, but I think it needs to be brought up again. You're going to have qualified people to do these kinds of things. They're going to have a good, solid technical background. And one of the things that concerns me is I used to be able to say that we could send these kids coming out of high school to Ivy Tech. Ivy Tech had remedial programs so they could bring them up to speed for what was lacking in their high school careers. Unfortunately, Ivy Tech is more like a 2-year college. They do not have remedial programs anymore, which means that we've got to go to the high schools here in Michigan City and make sure that they are getting out graduates who are ready to transfer into at least Ivy Tech in terms of building up their technical background, but also other schools in this area, such as Purdue Northwest and IU South Bend and IU Northwest. And you're not going to get in if you can't pass certain tests.
And we'll keep going down the tugboat road. We are sitting at the advantage, not just because of our harbor, and people would think it's a disadvantage that we have not been producing something like this, but we are sitting in the advantage because other people who manufacture these have been manufacturing since the dawn of time, and they are stuck pretty much in the way they manufacture. We can introduce manufacturing with robots, and we can produce manufacturing tugs that have automated driving ability that they would have to re-gear when we could just start from that, and our tugboats or whatever we make can be manufactured in a far greater, far more economic, far more technical capacity than anyone, because we're not beholden to the past that we are stuck with.
I'm not one of those that believes that history always repeats, but I will tell you I think it has kissing cousins. And what I'm going to say about that is, if you just look at what happened with Japan, we destroyed their entire industrial base during World War II. By 1950, they had come back to start to build up that industrial base. And what did they have? The latest machinery available to do the job. We've got, as Tony was talking about, we've got the advantage of starting from scratch. But by doing that, we can bring in the latest machinery out there. We can train people at Ivy Tech and these other schools to run that machinery. And these will, I guarantee it, be very high-paying jobs.
And we'll have better product.
Yeah.
Because they came out when we decimated Japan, they started all over from scratch, and they were not beholden to their past ways, and they came out with far more technologically advantaged manufacturing, which made better products. And it took America a long time to change our ways, knowing we were getting beat, and started using technology and switching our factories over to create these more technologically advantaged manufacturing processes and catch up to them in our quality and the way things work. And we've caught up.
Yeah, finally.
And they're over here using our people with the same advantages. And if you look, every one of these other manufacturers that are coming in the past and are coming now are using the new technological advantage to create their factories not on the old way, but the new way with robots and advantages and technology and people and manufacturing processes that are faster, easier, cheaper, and better than try to retrofit an old factory.
And I'm just going to bring up one more thing that I said earlier, but it was kind of in passing, because I really want to make this point. I think we could get a lot of economic help from the federal government in this situation, because they've got to be concerned about the icebreaker situation between China and Russia in the U.S. Up in the North Atlantic. But in addition to that, this is an Indiana project. So I think we could get a lot of help from the state. Remember, if we do this, we're going to be using steel out of the steel mills here in Indiana. But more importantly, we're going to be, and the single most important component on a tug or an icebreaker is its engine. And we can get our engines from Cummins, which is the headquarters, is in Columbus, Indiana, out of that facility. In Cummins, if we gave them the opportunity, could design engines with no problem at all for tugboats and icebreakers. And that's a threefer for the state of Indiana. I mean, you got the steel mills in Gary, you got us in Michigan City, and you got Columbus in just south of Indianapolis.
Well, let me ask a harebrained question, okay?
And not that you would ever do that. Go right ahead.
No. Again, pertaining to water, TP Labs, Ivy Tech, tugboats, and Cummins. What is preventing Michigan City from developing this concept? What is preventing Michigan City from developing this concept?
Leadership and picking up the phone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're going to have to go to work. I mean, this is not.
You're talking about the current leadership.
Yeah. Well, it's the
administration.
It's the administration and big time the economic development people and the redevelopment people.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I thought economic development was on the top of the keyboard. As far as I was concerned, I was under the impression they did nothing wrong.
Well, they didn't.
Oh, they didn't?
No, what they would do was take people out to dinner, 5, 6 o'clock at night. That was a part.
I got you. Take people out to dinner so that we can have chicken franchises come in and outnumber economic development in Michigan City. The more chicken franchises that we bring,
All right,
the more...
Dave and I have an ongoing discussion about this. I don't have a problem with those franchises. People,
But if you don't have a job, you can't go to a chicken franchise to be able to buy the product and service that
that
they
chicken
produce.
franchise is going to employ 15 people. We're going to keep 15 people
Not
off
to
of
pay a
welfare.
mortgage, not to pay a house payment, not
That's
to,
why we want to bring in this kind of
we
industry.
need economic development in this community. That's,
We need economic development at an upper level.
You have to realign their vision to focus
Oh,
on
I like that. Realize their vision.
to industry instead of housing.
Yes.
Let's focus, realign our focus on grabbing industry. Housing will come.
Housing is easy. These kinds of industry are very difficult because you're going to have to go to work. You're going to be frustrated sometimes because things go wrong. But in the end, this will hugely benefit.
So I don't mind them buying dinners or having get-togethers. Just do it down in Columbus, Ohio at the Cummins factory.
Columbus,
Or
Indiana.
Columbus, Indiana. Do it down in Columbus, Indiana with the Cummins. Drive down there. Get on the horn. Call them. Have dinner. I don't care.
yeah. What I would like to see is a telephone log of the telephone log of the people involved in economic development in this community to see how many phone calls they have made to individuals seeking seeking their interest if they wanted to relocate here. I would like to see how many phone calls are made today by Mr. Holtz and his group as to who they communicated with. I'd like to see it personally. Produce it.
I mean, I think you have to get beyond going to events and looking at the low-hanging fruit. You got to start cold call. Research and work. Research these people.
Yeah.
Find out who they are. If you have to find out where they go to lunch, find out where they go to lunch in Columbus, Indiana, and be there.
Well, to research these people will not be that difficult because we don't make that many tugboats and icebreakers in the United States. You're looking at maybe 2 areas that do it, and those areas are probably more occupied with trying to build a lot bigger ships because they make a lot more money than they do on tugboats and icebreakers. But this is the other reason that I had this in mind was not only do we have the steel mills here, not only do we have Cummins Engine in Columbus, but we also have a lot of technicians in the motorcraft industry. Now, these people have been working on boats that are up to 28 foot, 40 foot, but it would not be difficult with the right kinds of salaries, and they could easily do it, to recruit them into things like this. Because they can take their knowledge, and it's going to be easier for them to understand the types of engines and how they operate, because they're already working on them, except they're working on what they would call smaller craft
Recreational.
engines.
Again, I would like to see from the Michigan City Economic Development Corporations a telephone log of how many big entities that would create good jobs. How many entities have they contacted versus how many franchises that they've contacted?
I think that would require a FOIA request. Freedom of Information.
Freedom of Information Act. I know, but I'm just saying that, you know, we're supposed to be transparent. Okay? What we're conveying to the viewing audience is transparency, a possibility of transparency. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Or are you guys just blowing hot air?
Blowing hot air.
Blowing hot air.
My wife tells me that I am, but I don't believe her. So. But it's there. Now, I'd like to focus back on this idea of an aluminum smelter, because I also think, but that's LaPorte County. That's not Michigan City. But I also think that would be a very strong possibility. Now, the people that work there going to start out somewhere between $35 and $50 an hour. We won't get a huge amount of employment out of it, but we will get some at a very nice salary. And the idea behind it is they're going to produce the aluminum coils, the aluminum sheets, so on and so forth, that they can send out very quickly to small companies that make parts for the automotive industry and for the aircraft industry. Especially these huge engines that are being produced by GE in Cincinnati, Ohio, very close.
I just saw on TV that President Trump is opening up the coal mining industry,
Yes.
the clean coal.
Yeah.
How many acres do we have in southern Indiana of coal? that could be utilized.
Get right in there.
That's right. But that's southern Indiana. They can have the coal, we'll take the shipbuilding.
If I'm not mistaken, and I've been mistaken a lot, you could ask my wife, one of Trump's trump cards is coal. China has something like 1,600 electric generating stations that use coal. Trump, I think, is looking to bargain with them on coal. And that will be one of his big bargaining chips.
Yep. So I changed subjects. The House, Indiana House, passed the budget, I believe. We're getting ready to pass the budget that the governor accepted, and he didn't get everything he wanted, but he got what he thinks he needed. And it's going to go to the Senate, and it's probably going to pass. So they introduced, and the Northwest Indiana Times had a link, they introduced the chart on how much money the communities and the entities will lose in the next 3 years. Now, before we go over any of this, people need to understand that this is the amount of money they're going to lose from property tax reductions, which we will see a reduction in, or at least a decrease in the increase of our bills. They also are passing the ability to raise the income tax, the local income tax, so communities who choose to can recoup this money they lost in property taxes through income tax. By the way, I understand the companion bill to raise the local income tax lets the communities raise their local income tax more than what they lost in potentially this property tax relief.
When Tony brought this information in, this spreadsheet, it scared me.
That's just 2 pages of the whole state.
Yeah, it scared me, and just reading across TIF revenue and so on,
Oh.
that's an interesting
Dave, if
column
you haven't
within
figured out by now, Tony does consulting work. He is used to big spreadsheets and a lot of paper.
And big money. I don't get much of it, but I see big money.
Go ahead, Dave.
Michigan,
I couldn't resist that one.
Yeah.
the TIF districts, right? Michigan City, Cool Spring. They're going to get more money, right? Michigan City TIF district, Cool Spring, Michigan City, Michigan Cool Spring. Michigan City Cool Spring TIF is going to get more money. Michigan City, Michigan Township TIF district is going to get less. So that's not really the big hit for these people is in the revenue, and all you really need to do is look to the right side of the chart to see that it's about 5% loss for everybody. So for Michigan City, it's about $1 million a year lost in property tax revenue each for the next 3 years.
But now, let me ask this question. There is, as I understand it, somewhere I think I got some numbers on this, a rebate coming from the state because they gave Gary too much money for a couple of years for the gambling.
Oh yeah, they are getting that paid back.
And we're talking, what, $3 million or so?
Yeah, $3 million for the next 3 years.
There's your makeup right there.
I would hope, and I've hoped this since the day we got promised lottery sales, I've hoped this since the day we were promised a casino, that when we take the revenue that we didn't think we had, that we didn't have, put it in the bank and spend the interest. Because there's a day coming that that interest would grow to something that might be better than nothing, and then we would always have money to fall back on. So I gave Dave the Michigan City School District loss each year.
Am I reading this properly? 728,000,
About $750 million.
753,000, and 777,000 for the next 3 years
Each
combined.
year.
That's
Each year about
that's 2 point plus million, isn't it?
Yeah.
2.25
million the next 3
So
years.
Michigan City area schools, it's not a potential tax loss based on this budget. If it's passed, it is a permanent tax loss for the next 3
For
years.
the next 3 years.
Wow. Kevin better get his negotiations in place because
Just for them to stay even now.
yeah. I was suggesting around $3 million from the redevelopment to the school city.
And then
Wow.
they need 2.25 just to stay even.
Yeah.
And I believe this will pass.
Well, let me say this,
Wow.
because a lot of people are getting on our school system. Well, you're not doing the right things. People are leaving the school system at all. It's not so much that people are leaving the school system, it's that they were never there. What's happened is, and if you watch the financial programs, they will talk about this, the birth rate in the entire country has gone down significantly. People who, somewhere between the ages of 18 and 29, decided that they didn't want to have kids. And they did a survey among the 29-year-olds that were not married and didn't have kids, and they have no intention of getting married. It was overwhelming. 75 to 80% of those people in the 29 up age group that are not married do not intend to get married and do not intend to have kids. We're going to have to live with this. Now, I realize 50 years ago they brought in some kind of a consultant who told them Michigan City was going to be 80,000 by the year of 2000, and the school system would have 20,000, 30, not 30, somewhere between 15 and 20,000 kids. Long ways from
And we
that.
built the new high school because of that.
Yes, and in a wrong location. But anyway, we won't argue about that.
And then it sank.
To be more specific, $2,259,000 the school city is going to be depleted for the next 3 years.
Well, what they're going to have to understand is they have got to figure out a way that they make up for this. Now, I got a feeling, just because of not what was said by Michigan City, but what was said by LaPorte, one of the upper echelon administrators in the city of LaPorte a couple of months ago got very upset because of the recruiting that was going on in their high school. And the people that were doing the recruiting were South Central, New Prairie, these are public schools, the private school.
Marquette, Lalomere.
Marquette and La Lumiere. And as a result of that, they had various programs that they were sending out brochures on. And his comment was, well, LaPorte had never had to talk about our programs before. Guys, we're going to have to do this. You're going to have to tell people why their kids, because it's going to be even worse than it is right now to try to get these kids into your school system. You're going to have to figure out what kind of programs you can do that will bring them in and how you make this a really solid school system so that when these kids graduate, they can get into the technical programs. And I'll just give you historically a comment that I made to one of the school board members. This has got to be 15, 20 years ago. I said, why don't you think about bringing in a 4-H program? You know what I was told? We're an urban school system. We don't do that. You might want to think about it if you don't have it already. Or an FFA, Future Farmers of America.
In this expansion that we had before my time, when we built Michigan City High School out on Paz Road, we did a very wise thing and we started doing something like the A.K. Smith Center, which was very wise in the day, and then we kind of let it just go away. Well, it's still there, but we don't really emphasize it much. But that was very important because the A.K. Smith Center is something for non-college students that we need drastically, that most people send other students to our A.K. Smith Center.
Yeah.
And we have
From all over the county.
From all over the county. They don't have something like Michigan City has, and we need to make sure we grow that as much as possible, but we have to change gears from automotive and trades to specialized technological trades. Even if it's electrical or plumbing or HVAC or excavation, the technology leaps are far above what I think we are presently pushing. And we have to make that leap and jump on board because the competition is getting more intense every year. And these students are leaving because they have a better ability to go to scholastically higher schools. We need to focus on what we can give them, being the technological impact that we already have ready and foundationally ready.
I'll give you one anecdotal thing that happened to me a couple of years ago. The house that our daughter and son-in-law there's still 6 kids at home, live in, is owned by my wife. And we had a problem in March. The neutral line went out. I guess it runs from one of the NIPSCO's towers into the house. But we had heat. It was just the neutral line that was out. So I called NIPSCO, and I made a big mistake. The first thing they said was, do you have heat? Well, yeah, because we had space heaters. So they had space heaters in the room. Everybody was warm and comfy. And so they said, well, thank you. We'll get out there. You know when they got out there? This was March. They got out there in September to fix that neutral line. You can't find these electricians.
Yeah, NIPSCO is having a hard time too, that they don't have the people. And I do see some younger guys coming on at NIPSCO, and I say younger, I mean 35, 40, which is younger, because some of those guys are 50, 60, 70 years old who are retiring from NIPSCO. Some of the best diehard electricians you will ever find that are rightfully so enjoying their retirement. And so we need 20 or 30 year olds coming in, maybe even 18 year olds. And that's where technical stuff needs to happen with the youngest generation, if not 18 as a senior in high school, maybe 16 as a sophomore in high school. We need those people. We need them to enter into those areas that we need for plumbing, HVAC, electrical, manufacturing, and maybe even some heavy equipment work.
I used my Chinese abacus and did a little calculation between the civil city of Michigan City, the schools, and the sanitary district. You know what that amounts to? $5,603,640. Almost $5.5 million from 26, 27, and 28. These three entities are going to lose based on this calculation. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes.
You could recalculate it using the Mayan method.
So
We're a 10-digit math system. They're a 20-digit math system. They use both their fingers and their toes.
my opinion on this, again, when I start this out, you got to be wary. This is a property tax cut. The sister part of this bill is a local income tax increase. I am a firm believer that they should have gone further and made sure that we stop taxing property, because in my opinion, we never own our property, and that's not right.
No, we're in an indentured servant.
We should be able to own our property once we pay it off. If you want to increase the income tax, increase the income tax. This is a good start, but it breaks my heart when somebody pays off their property in their house and they live there, and they
goes up for tax
sale.
Yeah.
So you never own your property. That is not American. But they are going, the municipality can increase a local income tax to get part of that money, get all that money, get more than that money. I've been around not too long, but I would guess they're going to get more than that money, because their budgets are increasing, their inflation is increasing, their pay is increasing, which they should. Their cost for health care is increasing. The casino revenues, I would guess, is probably decreasing because the casinos are really proliferating around here, and they got to close the gap, and they will. Won't be fun.
I wonder what type of impact that would be on an individual wage earner to recoup his share of that $5.6 million in taxes, by the city.
That's a good question. We should run that in Excel chart so we can give that to our local council members and tell them, and somebody will do it. I guarantee they'll hire somebody to do that, Sender or somebody, and they'll say, as the local income tax increases, how much do we need to break even? How much do we need to pay the inflation of our budget? And what's going to happen? I mean, the neatest thing about this chart is you get to see how much Michigan City gets from...
I'm sorry, I messed up your chart.
How much Michigan City gets from property tax revenue in the civil city. About $21 million a year.
So that's almost 20%, 21, 22% of what the city gets?
Yeah, for all the things. No, Michigan City gets $19 million in 25, $21 million in 26, $22 million in 27, $23 million. That's before these property tax cuts happen.
I see, yeah.
So what's our budget in Michigan City? Isn't it like $40 or $50 million?
Yeah, I thought it was around 60, and we only can generate about 44 million of that. We're already in a deficit.
We're already in a deficit. It's not going to turn out well. LaPorte County, on the other hand, and now there's other budgets I'm not accounting in the 20 million, the sanitary budget, the redevelopment budget, they get income too. But LaPorte County, I believe, budget's like 40 or 45 million. They're getting about 40, 42 million a year. So they've tightened, I've said this before, they've tightened their belt many, many times, and as an elected official and somebody who had employees in the county, it's tough. Tough to tighten your belt. It's no fun. But the county held their budget, and they're looking pretty good. They're going to lose. LaPorte County is going to lose $2 million a year, $2.5 million a year. So they're going to hit. They're going to get a big hit. Again, you can look at the right of this column. It's about 5%. Everyone's going to have to look about 5%. So if they're thinking about giving raises to anybody, because we're all paying more eggs, milk, butter, whatever, bread. I don't know where they're going to find the money because they got like a 5% cut. They can't give a 1 or 2% raise.
I got an idea. It's right here. When you look at the TIF district revenue, they take in $5,154,000. Maybe just eliminate the TIF district, because if
Yeah, Michigan City, Cool Spring and Michigan City, Michigan, take in about $8-9 million a year.
there's the answer. Eliminate organizations that are really not viable to the community and balance the budget.
I thought you would like that because we keep harping on the TIF districts are taking money away, rightly or wrongly.
Because the tax base is frozen.
They're taking it away from the police, fire, EMS, and schools.
Right.
And right here, this chart tells you how much money that is. Each year, $8 or $9 million. Are you getting a better investment by the Redevelopment Commission investing this $8 or $9 million a year into either housing or some business tax breaks, or are you getting better investment by them taking that money and giving it to the schools, police, fire, EMS?
Or do you think about changing the tax arrangement for the TIF districts? Maybe it should be 50-50. The TIF district gets 50% of any new, and the city gets 50% of any new. So as a result of that, both then are going to be profiting as a result of getting better and more development.
And this law that was established in 2018, allowing 15% of the revenue to go to school cities and other entities that I've been talking about for a long time.
I would say I really like that because you always look at the options of the spectrum, but you got to look in the middle. So 50-50, or maybe if they have a new development where we have TIF districts and you have something new and then the TIF starts up, that it would be a sliding scale. So they get all the money and then every year they get 10% less. Because if they don't do something in the front end to make money in 10 years, do they really need any money?
Yeah, well, that works too, but my thought process is you want to keep these TIF districts working. You want people to come in there and develop it.
They want their feet to the fire.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
going back to these three combined, civil cities, schools, and sanitation, that $5.6 million, the TIF district gets on a yearly basis almost $9 million.
Yeah, so that $5 million is 3 years, they get $9 million a year.
No,
Yeah.
that would cut it in half, basically.
And that's why you get 50-50.
Well,
It's cut it in half.
people with common sense might, this is why spreadsheets scare me until I really start looking at it.
Well, maybe you guys, I don't know if this would work. You keep wanting to get this money from the sanitary district to extend that sewer to nowhere. Why don't you see if you can't get it from the redevelopment commission for the TIF district?
Well, and when I had an opportunity to talk to Tim Warner, the city engineer, and I said there is a possibility that money may be available to clean out ditches utilizing TIF district revenue.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. He's just new on a job, and I didn't want to scare him when I walked in.
We have used TIF district money for storm sewer
That is
problems.
correct. That is
I got a
correct.
feeling this one might qualify based on the TIF district that they're in.
You can't use it for maintenance, but you can use it for rehabilitation.
Correct. And I
And
presented this.
anything is rehabilitation.
Anything's
when it's a
rehabilitation.
sewer to nowhere.
And I presented this map to him that I got from Tony, and again he was very thankful for this information, because in his records as city engineer he has nothing laid out to show the flow of the water to the west side, and so he was very appreciative of this information. He even made a copy of this. He ran it through a machine that came out just like this, 3-color.
Yeah, they have a full-size machine.
So the city engineer is interested,
May 6th, the council's going to have a presentation from Al Wallace. They said that, right?
right?
Al Wallace is the operations and inspection manager for sanitary district. You brought up Wendy Vache. She is the director of public works
Correct.
at the sanitary district. And I didn't know Chris Carter is the superintendent of the sanitary district. So Al Walsh is going to give a presentation. Council member Don Przybylski said that at the meeting. And they're going to talk about MS4 stormwater quality, and they're going to talk about the Lafayette Barker.
Yeah, I don't believe we had an MS4 direct. When I tried
we
to
did.
when I tried
We
to
did.
contact the individual for years, I didn't get very many return phone calls.
He was tough. He was a good dude, but he was tough to get a hold of.
Yeah.
He did a good job. I give him that. I hardly ever could get a hold of him, but he got my work done in Michigan City, and I thought he did a good job.
Yeah. So my efforts have been for 45 years to expose this concept to the city of Michigan City. Finally, I see sun on a horizon, and somebody is being receptive, and that's a city engineer.
Oh, the glimmer of hope.
Hey, hey, maybe they're waiting for me to die, and if I die, then this issue dies.
Just because you guys got nothing better to do, I have one more to throw out.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about Tony's favorite subject, data centers. There is a magazine called Northwest Indiana Business that I'm on their subscriber list, and they are running a 6-part series on economic development. And one of the big ones they had was data centers. And they are looking at data centers throughout Northwest Indiana. And I could go into where they're at, and maybe we will in a different program, but I just want to start with this. The city of Maryville had 3 proposals put to them by contractors or developers, whichever, and they apparently revolved around
Am I right?
the kinds of standard things that you would think of: water, sanitation, and availability of a number of other items, big one being land availability. And right now we're saying that if you're going to build a data center, you probably need somewhere between 80 to 100 acres. You definitely have to have water for cooling situations, and a number of other things. But the important part about this is they went in and they looked at where are KV electrical lines. KV electrical lines will allow that the lines be split right there. They will not interfere as a result of that with residential or commercial properties, and it will be the data centers that will be the crux of the items going through these KV electrical lines. I've never heard of that before, and I don't know if Tony did.
Yeah, the solar people and the wind people look for these KV lines so they can hook directly into them and put power on. The data centers are looking for these KV lines to take power off because they don't impact communities, but they could impact the ability of. So we have 2 problems. We have KV electrical lines, kilovolt electrical lines, that are very high power. And the data center uses a lot of power, lots and lots of power. I mean, like the steel mills.
They could take a small nuclear facility.
Yeah, the steel mills, they could have a $400,000 a month electric bill. But the problem with data centers is they pull this power down. If they get any inkling of an interruption or a frequency break, they will automatically shut off their power from these lines, and it will cause a huge surge that could push back onto the power manufacturer, not to the homes yet, which could impact our residential people. So that is a huge problem the East Coast and the West Coast are dealing with. We're not so much because we don't have data centers, but data centers, it seems right now, are in a tenuous, very tenuous position because AI is getting faster, stronger, less processing needs as we grow AI. And Microsoft has come out on April 3rd and says that Microsoft is scaling back their data center projects in the US and Europe. So we need to make sure if we build a data center, it's the same building, maybe we put something else in, like a manufacturing unit or a battery plant. Because these buildings are easily changed, and these buildings are nice buildings, they're already ready, they're not old school buildings, they're easily interchangeable. And we, whether it's tugboats or cars or robotics, we need to take advantage of these buildings they might want to build.
Are you saying, Tony, these KV lines, that's electricity on the grid? Do we have 2 different types of electricity on the grid? One set for KV lines and one set for like residential?
They have different tiers of lines.
Yeah,
and you probably look at them, and I'm not sure, but I think the higher the line on these big high tension power lines is the higher the power source.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Because when you look at any utility poles in town, the electric's always on the top because they don't want people getting electrocuted. So as this power size limitation of the coil, the wire is usually higher the line, and they don't. If you even see some of the new towers that they're putting out, some of them only have lines on one side. Some of them have lines on a couple things because they have expansion capabilities. But you don't want the two. You don't want a high producer power line surge on a residential community.
Okay, well, and if the lines, electricity diminishes over a period of time, it loses its strength.
The loss
and
across.
would it trickle down to the lesser?
No, the cost.
So there are different lines.
When I got to go to the Hoover Dam, and I asked that same question.
Oh, did you? Oh.
And, they produce power, and I said, well, how do you send it all the way to Las Vegas or California without losing power along that line? Well, they jack up the electricity frequency so high that their loss is small, and then when they transform it back down, their loss is minimal. So that's why they have those transformers. You see them in the residential area. They have transformer that sometimes the squirrels get in, right, and they explode them, and they sound like bombs.
But they have long transmission lines between where the Hoover Dam is in Las Vegas. Here, you're talking very short.
Yes.
In terms of mileage.
And we have Grid Connect. You see they put new transmission lines connecting grids. So it's not as just simple as putting electrical lines together like in your house. They have tiers of electricity and wattage and amperage and frequency, and they combine all those. And now the thing, if you look online, the thing lots of people are talking about is dirty electricity, because it will affect your charging your phones, because these are very susceptible to wavelengths and frequencies that we try to modulate those out so they don't affect our TVs, because our TVs are nice LED TVs, and they really want clean power, and power that they call dirty power might mess up some of the chips in our TVs or our phones or our appliances or our refrigerator or
interpret KV versus the 440 that South Shore utilizes to drive its trains. Where does this 440?
I don't know what the amperage or the voltage of the KV lines are. They are astronomical.
But you're saying it's high, yeah.
But apparently for these data centers, they want those lines to be as close to so they can connect into them.
And so do the people that provide solar and wind. They want to connect into these high amperage voltage lines because it goes the furthest across the network, and I guess they get the most money for it, because this is the top tier of electricity that people want. And I think that's
what lightning.
I haven't looked into it. I haven't looked into it, but I think that's where NIPSCO, and they have this new company. I think they're called Genco, which is very interesting because if you watch The Godfather, that was his company's name, Genco. They know that that's where there's a lot of money to be made on these power lines that are for solar, renewables, and also for the consumer steel mills, data centers, car company manufacturers. They need this high power, and they need it clean, and they need it constant. And that's tough.
Which brings up another subject that we probably should talk about in future get-togethers, and maybe get some experts on here. Trump is going to push coal, what he calls clean coal. I think he wants it as a bargaining chip with the Chinese because they have to have it. I also think that some of the generating stations that still can use coal might be interested in this. What do you think are the possibilities that NIPSCO might decide to keep coal generation?
Well, in regards to NIPSCO, most of NIPSCO's coal came from Wyoming. It's a low sulfur coal, and they trucked in car after car after car, and they've had I researched NIPSCO many years ago about the coal-fired facility, and they're burning clean coal.
Yeah, they are. There's no doubt about it. They are. The thought that hit my mind was, if we're going to mine the amount of coal that he's talking about, and it looks like we will, I wonder how much. It's going to be a lot cheaper to use coal with the NIPSCO facilities that are presently there. I would rather see them go to gas and keep that coal out of there, but it's a possibility, and maybe we got to follow what happens and see where they go.
I think the environmental impacts they won't go back.
I hope, I agree
It
with
won't
you.
go back. It's just too much liability and too much problems with the coal and the coal ash. And
But NIPSCO
storing
put in
it.
this new scrubber and everything
And
else to
scrubber, I mean,
eliminate.
it's just too much. I mean, even natural
But it's already in
gas.
place. Are you? It was a $30 million project. Are you just going to dispose of it?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
in
That
that,
was sad, wasn't it? They put
That's
that
right.
in. I knew exactly when they put that in. They knew the lifespan of that scrubber and how much money did they spend that we paid for
Yeah.
this scrubber that
Us-
I don't know, but they had to know that lifespan was very short.
but I also have to say, in that industry, 30 million is not a lot.
Now, the people, I had a conversations last week about people and Trump and Art of the Deal and the book, and my take on Trump, and not just Trump, any corporate world, is this ups and downs of the market. Whether you want to stay in, whether you want to get out, whether you want to buy, whether you want to sell, they don't care any way around it. If you look at it, they only care that the transactions keep rolling. They make their money on the transaction. You buy, they got a transaction fee. You sell, they got a transaction fee. It's transactional. And the best way to increase their revenue is increase the transactions. So as these wild fluctuations happen, not just in the stock market, on anything, bread, milk, eggs, the transaction fee is always there. They might make some money on the commodity or the grocery or the stock, but they're definitely making money on it. When you buy a new car, they have a transaction fee. When you buy anything, there's a transaction. And the wilder the swing, the more transactions we have.
And taking that concept down to the personal level of us who may have some money invested. There's one particular entity I've got money invested in, charges me $300 a year just to service my account. Just to watch figures bounce around.
And as you trade, there's a transaction.
That is correct. Yeah.
And that's the economy we live in. That's the way it is. So if you're not too worried, don't get into switching and buying and selling because you're going to pay a transaction coming in and coming out.
Oh, a leprechaun just arrived.
The way I started this meeting, I said, don't worry about the stock market. That's not for the most of us unless you're a day trader.
2 minutes. You got to
That's
close up.
not something
2 minutes? Okay.
that you need to worry about. Concentrate on what we can do to bring in good paying jobs and do more for Michigan City. Because if we can get more into Michigan City in terms of good paying jobs and in terms of good places to live, if nothing else, your real estate will go up. We also talk about diversification. And in diversification, you want to own some stocks. You definitely want to own real estate. And part of owning real estate is owning the house that you're living in and not having to pay rent, but rather paying some principal so you can eventually own it, unless you're Elon Musk, who likes to sleep on the floor. His plant in California, when he's there, and with his money, he can sleep on the floor as long as he wants. But for most of us, the house we own is going to be our most valuable asset, and then you want to work around it.
Yeah, that's it.
A point I want to make between Larry Curley and Schmo here is basically this program is unrehearsed. We don't we don't dream up this information. It's unrehearsed. We read it, a spreadsheet. I recommend more people utilizing the knowledge that the computer provides and get in tune with really what's going on. Tony emailed this to me, and I was afraid of it when I looked at it on a computer screen because all these facts and figures. But the information there is valuable. Has this been passed by the state of Indiana?
That, I believe, is getting final approval from the House.
Final approval. Pending amendments.
No, that is the amendment.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for watching. Your input as to improvements or criticism of this program is greatly appreciated. Please contact Show's Tribe co-producers Bob Pollock, Dave Bila, or Tony Hendricks with your comments. You can email Bob at skrpollock@gmail.com, Dave at djbila1@hotmail.com, or Tony at emailhem@yahoo.com. Or you may address your ideas for any future shows to our one and only pain in the neck staff writer, Sarah Bellum, of the administration of Elko. I want to thank everybody for watching, and make it a good day.